Welcome to Housing for Good, a podcast dedicated to housing topics and issues affecting our communities in McPherson County and beyond. With years of experience and expertise, hosts Chris Goodson and Karolyn Moore discuss housing challenges and opportunities with other experts from a variety of housing fields.
Hello, and welcome to this week's episode of Housing for Good. I'm Karolyn.
And I'm Chris.
So, Chris, today we're going to talk about a very sensitive subject, human trafficking, and Lara Vanderhoof is going to join us. But before we get to that conversation, what do you have for news?
Well, I have a couple of things. Brush Up Mac is April 19th. We want to make sure that everybody signs up that wants to participate, whether you want to be a volunteer or maybe you will have a house that needs some work. We'd love to have you sign up so that we can help you stay in that home.
Well, and I thought about something on that line that we've never said, please do this. If you would like to sponsor Brush Up Mac,
yeah.
so that we can buy the materials, the paint, the whatever it is we need to help these homeowners. It takes materials and supplies. So feel free. Send us a check.
And I will say United Way is actually one of the bigger funders that we have.
They are.
Along with a lot of the other businesses. So I had one other small little news item, and it's something we've never talked about before, and I'd really like to have a show on it. And that's the fact that McPherson Housing Coalition has an incubator with our housing.
We do.
What we're doing, all the different types of housing that we're doing. We don't build a subdivision with 100 houses. We do maybe a couple homes, and then we figure out how it works, and then we expand it. So it's been a really fun project with the homeless shelter, with the supportive housing. We're looking now at possibly doing some, what was that word?
Land trust.
Land trusts in McPherson, where we might have 2 or 3 of those. So at a future show, we will have we'll have a whole show on what that looks like. Okay. What does McPherson Housing Coalition's incubator look like in McPherson, Kansas?
This will be scary.
I know it's going to be good. It'll be good. So, okay.
Okay. So today we are joined by Lara Vanderhoof. Lara, please tell us a little bit about yourself and the organization that you work with.
Sure. So Lara Vanderhoof, I'm a social worker by profession, and I help lead the local set-free organization that works to combat human trafficking.
Have you been around a while?
We actually established in 2011.
Oh, you've been around a lot longer.
We've been around quite a while.
Yeah, that is a long time.
We're local and global. There are actually about 41 different set-free groups around the world.
That's impressive.
Wow.
And the thought for me is human trafficking organization in McPherson, Kansas, this small little town. So people are going to be surprised probably when we get through this podcast of exactly what's going on.
For sure. A little background then, my doctoral work addressed human trafficking in the Midwest. I can't reveal all of the details, but if you read the work or you want to know more, I can give more of that, but to protect people. But it was very, very local in context. We're in the crossroads for sure in McPherson County.
Yeah, when you look at our highway system and the proximity to I-70, Interstate 135, and the bigger communities. So, okay, so describe for us the current landscape of human trafficking in McPherson, Kansas.
Right. So we just talked about the crossroads. So in McPherson County, you're not going to see a lot of numbers. However, there are numbers, and there are more than numbers. There are people that are being impacted, and the highways are part of that. But it's more than that. It is youth that are in foster care, people that are impoverished, people without work, people that are illiterate. So their vulnerabilities to many of us are just one step from being trafficked. And so the numbers locally, I can't give you because we don't publish that information. And it's not me publishing. We just don't publish as a community those numbers, but they're significant numbers. You're talking about 20 cases at any very given point. And because human trafficking is not just the sex trafficking, it's employment, it is agricultural, it is a living wage issue. So we have many components to look at this. And so when someone is forced or coerced and kept without in any of those pockets of their life, that is actually human trafficking. So it's more than people usually think about.
So how do you identify someone? What does that look like?
It looks different for each person. There's many signs, but they're indicators. And so we have to dig deeper and have more conversations. I'll tell you, it takes 6 meaningful conversations with an individual before they'll actually tell us that they're in the middle of being trafficked.
Wow.
6 meaningful conversation. And that means that if we were here and you asked me a few questions about my background, we'd have to go deeper. Mm-hmm. And then I'd have to have another conversation with you to find out a little bit more. And so that's research-based, that number that I'm telling you, that 6 meaningful conversations to get to know, because they don't trust right now, right?
Yeah.
They can't trust because right now they're being told, I'm going to be harmed. My family will be harmed. Mm-hmm. I will have less than I have right now.
So is it a little tiny bit of like domestic violence? I mean, some of it sounds like maybe it's not exactly the same, but they kind of, like, how you
Very
have to.
similar.
Yeah,
path.
some of the things that you're talking about remind me of the domestic violence that we see.
For sure, there's power, there's mistrust, there's control. If you think about the power wheel that you might be familiar with, the need for someone to think about me and care about me, to have the ability to have housing or food, and someone is able to do that. I can give us lots of stories of things and situations that have happened that I know about in our county. I'll give you an example. A mom came through our community and wanted to sell her children so that she could get drugs. And so that did not happen. That didn't happen. The children were not sold, but it could have happened. And so it wasn't a McPherson County individual. It was somebody coming through. Remember back to that crossroads. So yeah, there's a lot of similarities with a lot of the struggles that people go through. And there's a lot of vulnerabilities. We are all a paycheck sometimes or two from being alone without the resources to take care of ourselves.
That is very true.
I mean, I'm getting chills just listening to what she's telling me.
Yeah.
I mean, I knew that we had issues, but nothing like that.
So what efforts are being made right now in McPherson and this area to raise awareness about what's going on?
Sure. Lots of things are happening, actually.
Good.
I know I just spoke 2 weeks ago publicly about all the different things we can do, and we have meetings. My Set Free that we do, we have monthly meetings, so those are always available. The next one will actually be this weekend, which won't help anybody because that's the 9th, and I know this is recorded. But each month, someone can always reach out and join us for a meeting. The McPherson County now has a task force that we just started, and that's a multidisciplinary team of people. And so that's wonderful. More effort, more boots on the ground. And then there's a training which is happening for various people across the community on the 13th that the hospital is sponsoring. So that will not be something this audience will be able to participate, but look for follow-up because we're gaining momentum. And when we build capacity, we can continue to, all of us know how to change the landscape so that, because I believe one is one too many, right? And so there's opportunities. Our law enforcement is trained. All of our CDL people are across the nation are trained on the signs and what to look at. So there's lots of layers to what's happening in our communities.
Now, if somebody they hear this and they go, okay, I think I want to go to one of these meetings and just learn more. How would they go about finding out that information? Is there an email or a phone number?
Sure. If someone wanted to email lara.vanderhoof@centralchristian.edu, that's a really simple way. You can go to our Set Free social media page, McPherson Set Free, and you can find, and we'll reach out to you that way. So those are a couple simple ways to the organization that I lead. We're a nonprofit, and all we ask is that people want to be like-minded and join and fight against what's happening. We call ourselves freedom fighters, and so we have the ability to, one person at a time, look in that mirror, and we have an opportunity to step in the gap for somebody else.
Yeah, so we have people, national people all over the country listen to our podcast. So give us a national perspective a little bit on what's going with human trafficking. I mean, we are the crossroads, obviously, but then you think of it more in bigger cities, which may or may not be the case.
It's everywhere. We're not immune. So on the national landscape, we have great efforts through Washington, D.C. and our government and various agents. So they all have various task force. And responsibilities. So law enforcement, mental health, teachers, I mean, we all have our components of what we're looking for because we're mandated reporters in that. So there's training that happens. They're collecting data, they're collecting research, and we're trying at various levels to make sure the resources financially are there. There's victim assistance. I call it that the individuals are victimized, but the money that's out there from the federal government is called victim assistance. And so if someone is trafficked, they're afforded care, the medical care, help with housing for that to get them started. And so there's lots of layers that we can access on behalf of and with the individual who needs that, because our federal government believes in empowering and coming alongside individuals.
So where would you go? Let's say I suspect there's something going on. Would I go to the police department? Would I find Set Free? Where would a person go if I suspect something's going on and I really want to help or I would think that it would be a little dangerous, that you have to be extremely careful of how, just like domestic violence, you have to be careful how you approach this. And somebody like me who has no training in this, I don't want to just approach the person, grab them, which is what I would want to do, put them in my car and drive off.
Please don't put yourselves in harm's way.
Yeah.
Unless you're trained and equipped to manage and respond to that. And it's wonderful to want to help people. We all want to do that. I would say if you see something that doesn't look like it's okay, you all have your cell phone, 911 immediately.
Okay.
911. You can contact Set Free, and people do that here in the community. I've had people reach out from other states telling me what they see. And I'm like, I'm not there.
Oh my gosh.
I can't help you, but this is what you can do. And I'll walk them through that scenario over the phone for sure. You also can, if everybody wanted to put in their cell phones, you can text. You can text the hotline. And that number is Be Free.
That's it.
Be Free. Right?
Oh, wow. Okay.
Be Free.
Oh, that's awesome. And then you text, I'm seeing something, or what
whatever
is that?
Whatever you have that is in front of you or that you just learned about. So I had an example of, and this was real, in a Walmart parking lot, there was a number of people coming out of the van. I get a phone call. This is from another state. This is what I see. And I said, call 911, but you also, for the resources from the hotline, the human trafficking hotline, we can then do more. And so then we can connect back to the local community. So that's what that hotline's going to do. Okay. It's not going to leave you in a vacuum without the services and the help to keep that going. And then you can, our local law enforcement, wonderful, be it the sheriff, local PD, they're going to connect also. So it's a layered approach.
So I think we might have already answered this, but is there any other successful national initiatives or policies that have made a positive impact on human trafficking?
Yeah, the law for sure. The laws at the state level and the federal level and the services that are afforded to people are significant, and we keep making them better and stronger and more effective for that. So nationally, those laws are updated typically annually just to review and make sure the services are in place. And then you have your county and your state level. And then you have grassroots. What I consider our Set Free is very grassroots. We get in there and provide, if it's training, awareness, education. We don't have in McPherson a safe house. We haven't hit that capacity. Other communities do have the safe homes. Those are very specific. We don't usually put those where the trafficking. We need to move people into environments where they actually are safe. And so those aren't going to be the same places where we see the level of energy of the trafficking coming through either. We need to protect people.
This is amazing to learn all of this. I had no idea. I mean, wow. So earlier before the podcast, we talked about your international connection, which I think is incredible, that you're not only doing this locally, nationally, and now internationally. Tell us a little bit about that international work that you're doing.
Sure. So internationally, there's needs. We can come in to another country upon request. So there is no doing to another country. We don't know the culture well enough. We don't know the people. But with partnership, go in and provide supportive elements. So what I mean by that is training. So I do a lot of trauma-informed care. So trauma-informed care, when we don't actually take care of ourselves as first responders, we burn out. We start to internalize what we're seeing, what we're working with. So I typically, for me personally, go in and provide some of that extra training and support with the first responders, be it ministers, social workers, psychologists. It's an array of people. Individuals who have just found that they feel called to help be in the margins and strategize solutions. So, yeah, I will take students. I'm getting ready now for a trip to Thailand in 2026. Just had a request last night to take students there. And so I usually take students to equip the next generation. How are you going to serve the people that are the most vulnerable people, need English? So we'll go in and teach English. We'll go in and help those that are the frontline individuals. And then if we can make an impact with policy, we'll help that. But helping, I'm very clear, we do not want to do harm in another community. Mm-hmm. The people know their community, so we come alongside. And it's a privilege. I have a privilege to come into these very broken, dark spaces. If you would see some of my pictures in the relationships that have been built by going, they're joyful people who have been so harmed by another person.
Wow. Yeah.
That's amazing.
So what lessons do we learn from international efforts to combat this? And do we use those locally and maybe not even locally, but nationally? Are we learning anything? You mentioned Thailand. Mm-hmm. I know at one time, years ago, I heard that it was like one of the highest countries for human trafficking. But are their numbers better now?
I went and looked at some of the numbers in preparation for today, but then here's the deal with the numbers. The numbers are only as good as the person that's reporting them.
Yeah.
Okay? So I always am a little cautious on the numbers, and people want the numbers.
Yeah.
I go back to it's still one is one too many.
Yeah.
And so are they better? We're getting more information. We're getting more buy-in across the world that this is a systemic. It's not just human trafficking. It's the inability to get an education. If you are in a particular country where women are devalued, empowering women to have an education, that they can have a micro enterprise going from seed money, from an investment from another organization, and then they can continue their livelihood and teach the next person. I went into Guatemala during COVID twice to do this work. And you go up into the highlands where the Mayan people, and many people believe the Mayans don't exist any longer. Well, they do. And they have their own language, they have their own culture, and they're being trafficked.
Oh, wow.
They're illiterate. So it depends on the context of the location. There's much work to be done. And if anybody ever wants to join in on the international or the local,
I would like to come.
Yeah,
you want to go?
We're always open.
Yes, I would like to go to an international. That would be really an experience to see.
We train you, we equip, you make sure that you are culturally ready to do that work. And it's short term because we go in and provide some relief, some joy, some hope in the middle of the healing.
Wow, that sounds amazing. Mm-hmm. So how does housing instability contribute to the vulnerability of individuals in the trafficking?
Significant. We could talk about this topic longer than we probably have. So I'll kind of give us a little bit of texture. A youth who runs away from home, they find themselves on the street. A research report of our Kansas kids, 1 out of every 8 found on the city streets of New York City were Kansas kids.
Oh, my gosh.
I had no idea.
So it's significant.
Were they like foster children?
Some were foster kids. Others were runaway. And those youth, I consider them homeless. They're on the street. That's homelessness, right?
That's homelessness, yes.
So, or I had a family just recently in our community who stopped me and said, my grandchild's, I think they've been trafficked. And so we talk about it. Yeah, it sounds like they probably were being trafficked. And then that's a McPherson situation. And that's distraught with the relationship with their family, break it down in the relationships, abuse, neglect, and then they run on the street. So that's the youth perspective. Those youth grow up. Homelessness is an economic issue. Without economics, I need somebody to take care of me. Somebody befriends me. Someone looks out for me. I'm trafficked. So that homeless status or having basic needs, we're talking our basic needs. Yep. It creates a barrier for success. And we find people trafficked because they don't know where else to turn. And that trafficker, that perpetrator, Okay, this is a perpetrator. It takes advantage. You know, when I was doing my doctoral research, we had a situation in this community. I don't know if you remember, but Homeland Security showed up in 2014, 2015 and closed down a business. You will never find in the news that human trafficking charges were in play because they used other charges. But if you go back and read everything, those individuals were kept at their place of business. That's trafficking. They were not allowed to leave. If you don't have your own ID. So this is all, it's still homelessness.
Right.
And we take advantage of people. So it looks different. Here's what I would say about human trafficking. It's hidden in every place we are.
And that's a lot like homelessness as well. That's what we see. Our homelessness is so hidden in the Midwest. People don't see it. They're sleeping on somebody's couch or they're parked somewhere. And it's hard for us. We have a pit count every year. We can't find everybody, and we know they're there. So, and there's no way that our numbers reflect any way of what is actually going on. It's not a reflection. So all these things are tied together with housing and different things. They're all tied together, economic issues and housing and, like you said, basic food and all those things. And so it really makes us want to continue the work that we're doing at McPherson Housing Coalition to make sure that everyone has a place to live and a place to call home so they don't find themselves in these situations.
So you've kind of touched on it already in that if someone is rescued out of human trafficking, there's a safe house for them to go to. There's time for them to heal. How long into that person's journey or that person's walk will that housing be provided?
Typically about a year, depending on the program they are placed with or agree to, right? This is an agreement. They've got to connect with a housing program that fits their needs because there's different options. And I must say, it's not just women that are trafficked.
Yeah.
And so there's different kinds of safe homes. There's safe homes specifically for men, and there's safe homes specifically for women, and there's safe homes for women and children.
Okay.
Because all of those composites can be trafficked.
Is a year long enough?
A year is a good start to work towards working through the psychological traumas, start to find out where they are in terms of their education attainment, job readiness, skill development. You can work through, right? There's an individual who was trafficked many, many years ago, found work, and then because of the trauma that they had never worked through, had to quit everything. We have to make sure that we take care. And so, a year is your beginning to stabilize, wraparound services, the mentorship that's put in place in these safe homes. It's significant before they're ready to be launched into their next phase. So this is a long phased process. It's not something that can happen, and nobody should expect it to happen overnight. The trauma, bonding, and the psychological and emotional. And if that youth or adult, whoever it may be, is disconnected from a support system, we have to refine that, reestablish.
So you take somebody that's homeless. There's already trauma that's involved. That's why they're homeless. And then you add to that the trauma of being trafficked and whatever components go with that. And that damage can go so deep, but you have to work through it to come out on the other side and be able to begin to rebuild your life.
So I'm curious if there's any success stories. Do you have any stories?
Absolutely.
I'd love to hear a success story.
I'll give you one. A youth was from Colorado and came into Kansas and was able to have this conversation and find out you aren't with your relative, right? And we were able to take that youth out of that traffic situation on the spot and put them into a foster care system to get them the care they needed and get them out of that dangerous situation. And so that's the first one I think of. But there's many. The mom who I told you with the little babies that she was going to sell. They weren't sold. That's success.
That's success.
That is success. I'm literally having chills. I can barely talk during this podcast because it's so touching, and the work you do is absolutely incredible. I had no idea of the level of what you were doing and the group that you work with. How incredible. So what other closing thoughts? What else do you want to tell our audience that maybe they hadn't thought of? Or, I don't know, there could be a million things that you would want to say.
Yeah, there are. And there's things that if whoever's listening has a takeaway, remembering you are part of the solution. In your neighborhood, know your neighbors. That's the first line of defense, knowing who our neighbors are. If you're a postal worker and something doesn't look right on your route, call it in. You're a real estate agent and you're in the neighborhood and something doesn't look right and there's a lot of activity at a particular resident, call it in. We all have opportunities. Teachers, like they're mandated reporters, building relationships, knowing who the people are in our communities, recognizing that now that we're educated, we have an obligation.
Yeah.
So that old saying, if you see something, say something.
Absolutely.
Well, and then I think Laura hit on a very key point in her conversation was if that person isn't with their family, what is that relationship that they're in? Because there's a reason that that relationship is going on and they're not with their family, especially if they're a child.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So that was awesome. Thank you so much for joining us today. This was a great interview.
Thank you. Thank you.
Wow, I don't even know how
Let's
to...
all be freedom fighters.
Yes, let's all be freedom fighters. I mean, every single one of us has a responsibility to each other.
Yeah. Yep. Take care of each other.
Yep.
Well, thank you so much for joining us with this episode of Housing for Good. Please leave us a review. Let us know conversations that we should be having with other community members, topics that maybe are difficult to talk about, but, talking about it gets it out there for everybody to know about. Thank you for listening and
have a great day.
Have a great day.